Bitcoin's a macro asset now. It's being bought by nation states like El Salvador. It's on the balance sheet of public companies like MicroStrategy. These theories of diminishing returns are an absolute meme. So my base case for 2030 is that Bitcoin is worth tens of millions of dollars per coin without hyperinflation, and Bitcoin adoption is still less than 2% globally. You could kind of view the adoption of Bitcoin in MicroStrategy as a volatility accelerating and a volatility diminishing event. So my base case for 2030 is that Bitcoin is worth tens of millions of dollars per coin without hyperinflation, and Bitcoin adoption is still less than 2% globally. So I just believe that it's not going to take many people to actually send Bitcoin to these astronomical levels because Bitcoin is a monetary technology. So that is something that I believe a lot of people miss when they're thinking about these $1 million or $5 million price tags with Bitcoin. They think, oh, but that kind of correlates to like a 20 or a 50% adoption of Bitcoin by the people. And I just don't think that's possible. I think price is set at the margin. That was the whole thesis of the Bitcoin double halving video I made. And it only takes a few Michael Saylors to buy the remaining Bitcoin sitting on exchanges before all of a sudden there's no Bitcoin on exchanges. And it only takes a very small amount of buy pressure to send Bitcoin to crazy prices. So 2 million Bitcoin on exchanges, that's enough Bitcoin for 11 Michael Saylors. And a lot of people have said to me, but Luke, Michael Saylor is this weird guy on his own. He's the only person, employing this strategy. And I don't think so. Like, I think if you look out around the world, there's lots of people privately doing the exact same thing as Michael Saylor. So obviously you have Ricardo Salinas in Mexico, Mexico's second or third richest man. I believe he has more than 50% of his liquid net worth in Bitcoin. That number's changed and fluctuated. I think it rose from 10% in 2021. He learned more about Bitcoin. And in a 2023 interview, he said he was up to a 50% allocation to Bitcoin. We also have someone like Bill Miller. I believe he also has 50% of his net worth in Bitcoin. So you only really need 11 of these guys to copy what Michael Saylor's done. Like Michael Saylor is not a big billionaire. Okay. He's only got $6 billion of capital under his management at MicroStrategy. So again, you only need, 6 Michael Saylors to do what he's done. And all of a sudden you got no Bitcoin on exchanges. So I think that's a really common misconception, but something I want to double down on. We can see Bitcoin at tens of millions of dollars per coin and still have global Bitcoin adoption lower than like 2%. And I don't think anybody has really thought about how all of that shakes out.
One thing that we are seeing right now that is pretty interesting is that Bitcoin's price is starting to run more off of Bitcoin specific news opposed to just macro news, right? So we're going to get this, I guess, great little cocktail where it's going to be not only the ETF news, which we saw the pump today when it was allegedly approved for like 6 minutes. We saw a big giant pump and then a big giant crash down. But not only that, right, we're going to have interest rates drop this year, which will lead to more money in quote unquote risk on assets, and hedge fund managers are going to start to look for something like that. So on not only that, we have the ETF, more money coming in, hodler's behavior, and interest rates coming down, along with the halving, right? I mean, the halving will be kind of a part of it and be a kind of a price driver. But I think at the end of the day, exactly like you said, I think it's more about the hodler's behavior, and somewhat of the macro environment is going to affect it less and less. So I start to see that decoupling happening over a long period of time. But on the flip side of things, we're still in a fiat world. So do you think that this is the last cycle and that this cycle is going to be the super cycle?
Yeah, I think so. I said there's a 30% chance in 2021 cycle. I think there's probably like a 50% chance it happens this cycle. So again, nothing's a certainty. Anybody who tells you that they know exactly where the price of Bitcoin going, they're a liar, they're a fraud. Their name is probably Gareth Soloway and they're probably trying to sell you some bloody trading course. Okay, but nobody knows where the price of Bitcoin is going. Neither do I. But I am more confident in 2024 than I was in 2021 when I wrote that article that we are going to see a super cycle in 2025. Like you say, it is a perfect storm. We have all the catalysts laying there. We have a supply shock. We have a demand shock. We have absolutely everything happening. We have Uncle Larry Fink, who's about to spend millions of dollars advertising Bitcoin. Okay, we literally, I think Pompliano did a podcast the other day. I listen to it every now and then from time to time. He's got some okay takes when he's not talking about crypto, and he said that he believes that between the ETF issuers, you're going to see $100 million of ad spend on for Bitcoin in the next couple of years. That's massive. Like, I think Wall Street have filled their bags. I think the past 3 years have all been an attack on Bitcoin to actually suppress the price and let Wall Street fill up their bags. Think about it. We had FTX naked short 80,000 Bitcoin in 2022. They were supposed to have 80,000 Bitcoin on their balance sheet, and they didn't. And we even got the inside leak and the inside scoop coming out of FTX when Caroline said that, yeah, we were trying to suppress the price of Bitcoin under $20,000 by selling Bitcoin. Sam directly told me to suppress the price of Bitcoin under 20K. So now that we don't have any FTX, we don't have any of that fake, naked shorting paper Bitcoin games going on with Sam Bankman-Fried in the Bahamas. I think the coming year could be very, very interesting for Bitcoin. Everything's lining up for it to be a perfect year.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that there's going to be, the SEC and like other regulators are making it harder for issuers of quote unquote paper Bitcoin. And I agree with you 100%. But one thing I do worry about with this ETF, right, is that there is a lot of demand, right? And there's obviously not, the SEC just kind of proved that they don't have a lot of competence. They can't even keep their own Twitter account, secure. So do you believe that the SEC, or not the SEC, but this new ETF might almost take place of FTX? I'm not saying that BlackRock's going to do anything nefarious or anything like that, but I don't know if the SEC has the capability to audit and make sure that BlackRock has as much Bitcoin as they say. And I'm not quite sure about the regulations between spot ETFs. If some of these $1 billion, if they need to come in and need to have 1,000 or 100% of whatever everybody buys of this ETF, or if it's just a fractional percentage, which could also kind of suppress the price as well. If the demand for this ETF is, I don't know, I'm just throwing out random numbers, but like 10,000 shares, for example, and the BlackRock only purchases 1,000 coins, so to speak.
So I'm no expert in the ETF realm, and I am more conspiratorial than most. I've done many videos explaining why this BlackRock Bitcoin ETF should not be trusted, and I've even speculated why it could be an attack on Bitcoin. But I believe that these ETF issuers are actually held to a very, very high standard from my very limited knowledge about the space. I try to learn as much as I can from some people who are, far more educated in the ETF realm, and it sounds as if they are held to a pretty high standard. But I won't trust it even if you come out with like an audit. I would still be like slightly skeptical. Okay, do we trust these numbers or not? I don't know, but I think it will be pretty easy to verify, because we can just simply look at the coins on exchanges and the coins held by Coinbase custody, and we can know pretty clearly like whether there's Bitcoin being ripped off exchanges by these Bitcoin ETF issuers who do have to buy the Bitcoin. That is another big misconception in the space right now. There's a lot of jargon going around with this cash in kind redemption and all of this other stuff. Some people think that the ETF issuers don't have to buy real Bitcoin because it's cash in, cash out ETFs. But no, they have to buy the actual Bitcoin to back up their shares. So I'm not sure. I mean, I don't trust anyone as far as I can throw them. And even if BlackRock comes out with some sort of audit, I'm still probably going to be slightly skeptical. And it's good to be on the offensive and always looking at how things could go wrong.
So then, I guess in this cycle, if you believe it's going to be a super cycle, then are you like Michael Saylor? Is it going to go up forever, Laura? Or do you have a price target you're looking at in this next cycle?
So I wanted to quickly interrupt today's video and double down on a point I just made, okay? Taking self-custody of your Bitcoin is more important than ever today as we watch all of these Bitcoin fly off exchanges, and as we watch billions of dollars flow into these Bitcoin ETFs, we need to remember why Bitcoin is a revolution. It is a revolution because it can separate money from state, and we can only partake in that revolution if you're holding your own Bitcoin and you have permission to spend your Bitcoin whenever you want, wherever you want, to whomever you want to spend it to. So again, if you've got Bitcoin sitting on an exchange, please learn to, take self-custody of your Bitcoin. It's easy to do. There are a number of great tutorials online that are going to teach you how to do it for free. But if you want your hand held along the way and you're a little bit scared to take self-custody, please reach out to me and I can help you take self-custody of your Bitcoin, or I can help you set up a collaborative custody setup where you could have a Bitcoin wallet with 3 different keys in 3 different countries. If you want to learn how to set up a multi-signature setup just like that, you can reach out to me. I'm pretty thrilled to be working with the Bitcoin advisors, and we can actually get you set up with one of these geographically superior setups in under 60 minutes. So again, you can grab a free 30-minute consultation with myself. You can check out all of the times I'm available on my calendar. If there's a time on there that doesn't work with you, you can actually reach out to me in the comments of this video or over on Twitter. I might make a special exception for you because you are a loyal YouTube watcher. So again, take self-custody of your Bitcoin. Let's get back into this short and sharp little rip with Brandon. I think $900,000 is a really interesting price for Bitcoin. So I think obviously your diminishing returns maximalists are going to get wrecked. So Bitcoin's going to get up to 150 or 200K. All of those bros who have been talking about diminishing returns are going to sell their Bitcoin. Bitcoin's going to have a 30% correction. They're going to be screaming, hey, look, we were right. Maybe even Gareth Soloway will come out of the woodwork then and he'll say, hey, look, I've got a 100x leverage short open on Bitcoin. And then Bitcoin will rip. It'll take its all-time high again. All the people who sold will FOMO. And you just watch volatility get even more crazy like it did in 2017. If somebody pull up a chart of what the Bitcoin price did in 2017, had like 8 corrections of 30% or more. Every single correction, somebody thought the price actually, everybody thought the price of Bitcoin had topped and it was all over. And they had good reason to believe it because the chart was parabolic. But the interesting thing about parabolas is they always go higher than most people believe them to go. So I've seen lots of people, think the average, Bitcoin's going to hit 100K to 200K this cycle. That's like the average consensus. I've seen a few bulls believe it's going to hit, 500K, 600K, maybe even 700K. But I haven't seen many people suggest that Bitcoin's going to hit $1 million. Our friend Samson Mao believes Bitcoin's going to go to $1 million in the space of a couple of days or weeks. And I actually think that is less crazy than many people are saying it is. Okay, if Bitcoin is globally adopted by the world, it is only a matter of time before we see an Omega candle, a $1 million daily Bitcoin candle. It is going to happen. It is maths. It is not crazy. It is not bullish hopium dealing. It is simply going to happen. You have $900 trillion of wealth in the world. Bitcoin today is like $800 billion in size. Is it really that crazy to suggest Bitcoin could do a $1 million daily candle? I don't think so. Not when you actually put it in market cap terms. But I think there is a price or a market cap that Bitcoin reaches where you don't see a 70 or 80 or 85% correction ever again. And I think maybe that happens next cycle. If Bitcoin does, go to 500K, $1 million per coin, all of a sudden it's a $10 trillion market cap asset. And what's really interesting about this is when Bitcoin reaches a certain size, all of a sudden it becomes even less risky than it is today. Because if Bitcoin's at $1 million, that means it is big enough for the largest companies in the world to start indiscriminately allocating to Bitcoin. So for example, Michael Saylor is the perfect example of this. He's never selling Bitcoin. He's price agnostic. He's converting his whole balance sheet to Bitcoin. So you could kind of view the adoption of Bitcoin in MicroStrategy as a volatility accelerating and a volatility diminishing event. So Michael Saylor taking all the Bitcoin off exchanges, that accelerates Bitcoin supercycle. But after a certain point in time, that's going to actually decrease the volatility because you have someone like Saylor buying, $5-10 million of Bitcoin every single month with his profits, and he's not selling it. So when I say it's volatility diminishing, that means eventually there's less sell pressure and there's only buy pressure. So like Michael Saylor says, it's going up forever, Laura. And I think that's what you do eventually see, because I believe when Bitcoin hits a price tag of $1 million, all of a sudden companies like Apple, Microsoft, who literally have over $200 billion of cash on their balance sheet, they are forced to make the decision and say, look, we need a 5% allocation to Bitcoin. Even, let's be conservative, we need a 1% allocation to Bitcoin. I think there's 58,000 public companies. I mean, how much Bitcoin is on exchanges? There's 2 million Bitcoin. So that's only enough Bitcoin on exchanges for 11 people to buy more Bitcoin than Michael Saylor. So I think at a certain price point, it does make sense that you're not going to see these 80% corrections, because for every pleb like myself or you who might want to peel off 1 or 5 or 10% of our stack and sell it, there's going to be a buyer on the other side of that transaction who is buying Bitcoin forever and they're never selling it. So once it's going on the balance sheet of Apple or Microsoft, they're going to copy what Michael Saylor did. They're never going to sell it because Bitcoin is superior money. So if you made it this far into today's video and you enjoyed that short and sharp little 15-minute rip of me and Brandon, you're going to absolutely love the full 60-minute version of that interview. It was posted over on Brandon's channel earlier today, so I'm going to slap a link for that video up on screen right about there. And with all that said, hope you guys enjoyed that video. You can let me know in the comments down below if you thought I was a little bit too bullish in it. And with all that said, hope you enjoy the full rip with Brandon right about there. But if for some reason you've already seen that interview with Brandon, you can check out the live stream I did yesterday when I broke down all of the news happening in the Bitcoin space. I'm going to pop a link to that video right about there. Well, that said, catch you in the next one.